everyone, I am Vishwamohan and I welcome you again to the part 2 of Node.js deep dive. I hope you liked, understood and enjoyed the part 1 of the Node.js, which is there on this PW Skills Tech channel. If you have not watched that, the link of that video will be in the description. Please make sure that you have watched part 1 because that will help you to better understand this part 2. So now, instead of waiting more, let's get started and start from where we stopped in the part 1 in Node.js deep dive. So now, since we have understood a lot about Node.js, it's time to move further in this Node.js world. So when you start working in a Node.js project, there are few words that you will find more than often, right? What are those words? You'll always hear terms like modules, dependency, and the packages. Let's try to understand each of them, that what each of them mean. So let's start with something called as a module. So modules are nothing, in very simple terms, modules are nothing but one or more .js files. What is a module? A module might be a single JavaScript file or a multiple JavaScript file, right? That's number one. The second part of the module is that it will have some kind of logic, solving some functionality, solving some problem, or it will have some kind of logic, or it will have some kind of functionality. So module is basically one or more of a JavaScript file. It will have the codes written, which will have some kind of functionality, some logic, some problem it might be solving. And the best part of these two things is that, the modules are in such a way so that, these files could be used from anywhere in the Node.js project. So what it means that, modules are basically the single JavaScript file or a multiple JavaScript file together, which will have some kind of logic. The beautiful part of that is that module is something which you can require, which you can include at any part of your Node.js project. So basically they are reusable. Mostly these are reusable. Now, if I talk about what are the different types of the modules, so module itself, we're going to talk about in Node.js, the modules, few are inbuilt modules. That's number one, which is already available as a part. When you go and install Node.js, the Node.js has some inbuilt modules. For example, file system modules, OS modules, HTTP modules. These are the example of inbuilt modules. We'll take the example of those, we'll write the code based on that. So we'll try to understand what those modules are. That's number one. And the another one is the user-defined modules. User-defined modules. So these are the modules that you go and create. You write it yourself so that it could be reused at multiple places in your project. Now this could be, you do it yourself. You as a user, you go and create yourself in the file, or these could be external. These could be the external. So that's what the meaning of a module is. Module is nothing but just a plain JavaScript file which has the logic, so that it could be required, it could be included from anywhere in the Node.js project. They are reusable. There are few inbuilt modules. There are few modules which you have to go and define yourself. If you try to get it from other people who have created modules for you, that will be called as an external modules. We'll see in detail that how these modules are written. So the first term was module itself. So we have understood what module is. See, let's talk about the packages itself, right? So packages is basically, so what is the package? The package is basically, it's a combination of all the files needed for a module. When you go and define a module, a file, basically a JavaScript file, it might be dependent on other files also. When you combine all those files together for a module, that typically is called as a package. It's very much similar to how you define packages in the programming world also. So basically a module will have a JavaScript file which contains the logic, and for one module, what are all the related files? When you package it together, that typically is called as a package. So both are the related terms. Now since we have understood modules And we have understood packages. Let's talk about the dependencies. Say for example, I want to make tea in my house. For making tea, I need few things like milk. I need something, for example, tea powder. I need something called as a sugar. So for making tea, all these three things that you see, milk, tea powder and sugar, all of them are my dependencies. So dependencies could be the external modules which other people have defined, the external libraries which other people have defined, the external code that other people have defined, which you go and make use in your project itself. For example, in the in the earlier part of the session, we talked about the express, right? That how express is an external dependency that you might need for building a Node.js application. But express.js, don't worry for now. We will have a separate session where we talk in depth about the express. So by now, I believe all of us are crystal clear on what module, dependency and packages are. Now we'll try to take a hands-on route, try to build the module ourselves. We'll also try to make use of some inbuilt modules and see how that works in practice. So let's get started. So let me move directly to my computer screen. So now let's try to create a module by myself. We'll try to see that how we can create our own custom modules and make use of that, right? So I go and open this, the project folder, and let me go and create a file here called as my module.js. As we know that a module is nothing but a JS file itself, right? Now inside this, let me go and add a function. Let me go and call it as const, and I go and call it as add equals to a comma b, and then I go and do this, return a plus b. So right now this is a my module.js and it has a function called as an add, right? This is a function called as an add. Now I know that a module will have a logic and it should have some way so that it could be used at other places in the file. So how do I do it? So anything that you write inside the module, that has to be exported. So for doing this, what we need to do, we can go and say that module.exports equals to add. What I do, I go and say that module.exports equals to add. So as soon as I do this makes sure that this entire file, whatever the method or the function which is written here, will be available from the other file itself. Now how do I check that? So in order to check that, we go and define another file called as index.js. Now if I have to make use of the module, somehow I need to bring the my module in this file. How do I do it? To do this, we make use of, we say that const, and I go and say that add equals to, I go and say that require. I need to go and path the complete path of that. So for example, this and I have something called as my module. So what I did, I call require. So require is the method that I go and call whenever I have to go and require any module. So in that, I go and provided the path of this module. And then since this is this, I can just go and do that add 5,6. Let me go and print this. Console.log add 5,6. So let me go and run this file and see what that happens. So if I go and do this, let me go and open the terminal. So if I go and do this, clear node index.js, you can see that 11 is getting printed. So I wrote some functionalities my module.js, right? And I'm able to use this in my index.js, as you can see this, right? So this is how the modules could be created. I'm able to create a module and then I'm able to use that another file called as index.js. Now in this module, I have only one function right now called as an add, right? In this module, I have only one function called as add. Let's say that I want to add more function. For example, I want to have another function called as const multiply equals to a comma b, and then it returns the multiplication of a into b like this. Now, how do I go and export both of them? Can you guys make a guess? How can I do it? You can pause the video and tell me in the comment how can I do it. If I have to do this, instead of passing just one, I can go and return an object. I can return a JavaScript object from this. So I can say that add equals to add, and then I can say that mult equals to mult. And now in the index.js, I can simply go and rename this as, let's say, let me go and call it as maths, right? And then I do what? Maths.add. And similarly, I can go and call the another function also, because this is a JavaScript function. I can go the math.mult. So now if I go and run this, right, if I go and save both these files and if I go and run this, I get 11 and 30, right? So I'm able to export the multiple methods or multiple functions from the same module. How can I do it? I do it with the help of JavaScript object. Now, just keep things in mind when you go and develop the actual application, these things gonna come very handy. Time and again, you'll be creating your own modules and exporting it so that it could be used from other parts of the project. Now, this is not enough. There's a other way of exporting this. Let's say that I don't want to follow this route. How can I do this? The another way, the another shortcut way of doing the same thing is that, let me go and comment this out. And the another way to do the same thing would be that I go and say that exports.add equals to this. And I can say that exports.multiply equals to AB. So this is the shortcut for the same thing that you did. You can do it another way through this way. You can write exports.add and exports.multiply. Let me try to run this and see if this executes the same result. If I go and do this, I still get 11 and 30. These are the two ways through which you can actually go and create a module and go and export it. Am I clear? Does it make sense? Is everyone clear? How do you go and define your own modules? I hope everyone is clear. So now since we have understood how to write the own module, let's try to understand how to make use of the already defined internal modules which are available, right? So one of the very common operation that you will mostly find yourself engaged in is dealing with the file system itself. So with the file system module, we'll try to understand that how do we make use of internal modules and bring into the uses. So let me go and create another file. Let me go and call it as read_write.js. So this file will have a logic to read from the file, and it will also have the logic to write from the right. It will also have the logic to write to the file. So first of all, let's try to read the file. So for reading the file, we make use of something called as fs. So fs is an inbuilt module which is already available in the case of node.js. Node.js has many modules, right? So for example, if I go and open this, right, and I go and say that node.js documentation, when you go and hit on this, right, you can pick, say for example, if I go and talk about this version 18, right, and I talk about these are all the modules that you have. These are all the modules. So if I go and talk about the fs module, right, you go and search file system, you should have the file system modules. You have a file system module which is the fs module, right, and these are the different methods. So this node.js, this place, node.js.org and documentation is an excellent place where you can go and see what are the different inbuilt modules which are available in JavaScript and how you want to make use of it. So I'm going to see few of the use cases of this fs module available inbuilt in node.js and see how with that I can read and write to the file in the both synchronous as well as the asynchronous way. So let's get started. So first of all, let me go and create a file itself. So let me go and call it as input.txt, and here I go and say that hello students. Let me go and save this, and then inside this read_write.js, what I go and do is, since I have to make use of the file module, I go and say that const fs equals to require, and I go and pass fs. As you can see, for those module which is prevent internally, you don't have to go and provide the path, you just have to go and pass the fs, the name of the module itself, right? So I go and say that fs module, that's all, correct? And then what I need to do using this fs, I can go and read that. So let's first of all, let me go and try to read in the async way. So to read in the async way, let me go and say that I can just go and say the console.log so that you realize it is reading in the console way. Console.log, start reading. And then I go and say that fs.read file and I go and say the name of the file is input.txt, and once this is read, I can go and pass that as error and content, and I go and say that if error, I go and say that console.error, and I say that error, right? I'll be going to return this. Otherwise, what I go and do that, I go and enter console.log, and I go and say that content. Right, so I go and read file fs.read file input.text. If I'm not able to read for some reason, the error should get printed. Otherwise, we will print the content. And let me go and put that console.log, and I say that the last line. So this read file method tries to read in the asynchronous way, and that's why when it's read, I have added a callback function here. So ideally, what should happen when I go and run this? First of all, this line should get printed. Now, since this is a callback function, asynchronous, it will go to the next line. So this line number 18th, last line should get printed, and then finally the content of this input.txt file should get printed in the console. Let's get ready to print this. So if I go and do this, and let me go and this input.txt, this is also saved, right? So I go here and I do node read write.chase. When I go and enter this, if you see here, I get the start reading, I get the last line, and then I'm getting the buffer. Now, can you guys make a guess that why I'm getting this buffer here? So what we get here is a byte array typically, right? So if I want to convert that into the string, I'll have to typecast. So the very simple solution to that is that I can just put a the string before this, and I can say that file content is, I go and say that content. So if I go and again rerun this, right? If I go and again rerun this, in that case it is saying that hello students, right? So it is now converting that byte array into the string and is properly reading that. Same thing if I would like, and if you see here, since it is asynchronous, so first of all the line number 9 gets executed, then the line number 18, the last line gets executed, and then finally this asynchronous function gets called. Now a small exercise that I want you guys to do is that now, can you try to understand or try to decipher how internally JavaScript will execute it? We already told you some time back that how the callback queue, how the call stack, how the event loop, how the web APIs come into the action whenever the asynchronous function happens. So can you find out the steps, step by step, that how all things, the executions are happening internally? Try to do this as an assignment and put that into the comment, that what will be the order of the flow of the execution. So now, since we have seen that how to read the file in the sync way, let's try to see what will be the way to read this file in the sync. So same file, if I want to go and read, let me do one thing. If we go and comment this whole line, and now instead of reading in the sync, a sync manner, I'll be going and say that fs.read file, and I go and call it as sync. fs.read file, and I'll go and say that sync. And inside this, I'll go and pass the path of the file. So what is the path of the file? The path of the file is input.txt. And this I need to go and store somewhere. So I go and say that const, and let me go and call this as content equals to fs.read file. And once that is done, then I go and do is that console.log, and I'll say that content. Right, I'll go and say that console.log content. So now if I go and read this, since it is synchronous, so first of all, I'm expecting that line number 9 should get executed. Then line number 18 should read the file content. Then line number 20 should print that content. And then finally the last line should get printed. Let's try to run this and see if that's what actually how it works. So let me go and run this. So I'll go and say that node, and I'll go and say that read write. Let me first of all save this file, read write.js. As I see, it said start reading, then its content is the buffered the binary array, and then the last line. In order to make this print, I can say that content read content, and I just do a plus sign so that it is typecasted to the string. If I go and run this again, I see that hello students, red content is hello students. So that's how we make use of the FS module to read a file in both the synchronous way as well as the asynchronous way. Now we have seen how to read the file. It would make sense more to us if we also understand that how do we write the file, right? So let's try to understand that how we can go and write the file. So for doing this, let me go and comment all of this, right? Let me go and comment all of this. Perfect. So all this file gets commented out. So first of all, let me try to write the file. So let me try to write the file. Write the file in the async way. Let me try to write the file in the async way. So for that, what I do, I'll again make use of fs.write file. And inside this, I have to go and pass the file path. Let's say that, I go and call it as output.txt, output.txt. And after that, I have to go and provide the content. So for that, I'll go in the content as hello student. And then I have to pass a callback. Let's say that something wrong if it happens. In the case if the error happened, I will go and say that console.error, and I'll go and pass this error message. And I'll say that return. Otherwise, I should go and say that console.log. I'll say that return successfully. Perfect. So what I've done, if you look around, I've written a file called fs.write file. So this is a method which will write content to your file in the asynchronous manner. And to which file it's going to write? It's going to write it to output.txt. The next part is ki bhaiya what content I want to go write, that is hello students, and then finally this callback function. And then I go and say the console.log written successfully. So when I go and run this, right, fs.write file, if I go and save this now, and let me try to run this file node, and I go and set the read write. I see in the command section that it is written successfully. Correct? Can you guys see that? And then in my output.txt, this file got created where I see that hello students is present. So this was a very beautiful and small decent example to understand that how files could be written asynchronously. Now let's say that if I want to do the same thing in the synchronous way, how can I do this? So I can just go and comment this whole entire line like this. And then I go and write fs.write file. There's a sync function. So normally Node.js follows this convention. Every time a function is by default, it should be considered as an asynchronous function. If you're trying to make it sync, it should be suffixed with the sync keyword. It's just a convention, no hard and fast rule. It will give no compilation error. It's just a convention that you try to follow. If a method is synchronous, you try to suffix it with the keyword called as sync, just like this, right? And then inside this, what we need to do is that we need to provide the file, output file. So let me go and call it as output1.txt. And then I go and provide the text. So I go, what text should I get? I go and say, hello students again. And I save this. If I go and run this now, what you will see is, inside this, if I go and refresh this folder, you'll find one more file called output1.txt has got created, and inside this you see that hello students again got printed. So this is how an existing internal module of Node.js, which is FS file system module, which we have leveraged to write the code for reading and as well as writing. Now the next important interesting topic that we need to learn is called as web servers. Node.js has a in-house or native module called as HTTP which help us create those servers. But before we go hands-on and understand how those can be built, what server is, it's very important first of all to understand what server itself is. So let's try to first of all understand that server. As a software engineer, right, whenever we write any code, if I have to make this code, what will happen? I will always go and execute it, right? I will somewhere try to execute this code. Execute. You've seen that every time I have written some lines of code, if I had to execute, I have to go and say that node readwrite.js, or I have to say node file1.js. So unless until I execute the code will not run. But when we say that I am writing the code, what is the ultimate purpose? The ultimate purpose is that this code together could form some kind of application, and people should be able to use that application. Say for example, if I'm talking about Facebook, anyone and everyone from different parts of the world, they can actually go and access this Facebook, right? Anyone and everyone in the different part of the world, they can go and access the Facebook. Now, when I go and make use of the Facebook, there is no some individual who is running it, right? It's always available. So anytime as an individual, when you go and write a code, if you want this code to be available to the rest of the world, if you want the other people to make use of this code, your customers, right? You have to make these code available all the time. Right? Any application that you see like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, they're available all the time. And when they're available all the time, then only your customer will actually go and use it. So how do I write the code that I am writing? How can I make my code available to all of them? In order to achieve that, we use a concept called as a servers. So servers are typically a never stopping process. What are the servers? Servers are basically a never stopping processes. Just like, let me take a real world example to explain how a server might look like. For example, let's say that it is a hotel. Now inside this hotel, the customer can come anytime. The customer can come anytime. In the day might be the hotel gate is open, in the night the hotel gate might be closed. So what we do at the gate of a hotel, we keep someone called as a guard bhaiya. So as soon as the customer comes, the guard ensures that it goes inside the hotel, opens the room for the customer, and the customer gets in. And this guard keeps a check which allows anyone and everyone to come to the hotel anytime, be it night or be in the day. So it allows the people to keep coming to the hotel, right? It allows the people to come and go. This guy here typically is working more of like a server. Let's say that, I have created an application. An application is nothing but a code that I have written. I want this whole application to be available for the entire world. I want the entire world to use this application. What I will have to do is that I'll have to wrap this inside something called as a server. Now, anyone outside this world, if they want to come to the application, right? Anyone who wants to make use of this, if they have to make use of, they have to first go and interact with the servers. Servers are the one like the receptionist, right? The guard who first interacts, okay, what the request is. Now the server will take the request, go and execute the code. And once the code is executed, right? Once the code is executed, then it gets back the result and sends back to the external world. So the responsibility of making your application up and running all the time is being done by the servers. I'm again repeating again. When you write your code yourself and you want to test it, how do you do it? You execute that file. But do you think if when you want to expose your application to the entire world, the millions of the people, when they call your application, can you do that manually, that you go and execute the file? It's not possible, right? So instead of you doing it, you bring someone called as a server. Server is a never stopping process. Never stopping process. He is that obedient guy who is always up and running, right? So anytime you see an application which is running and available, they all are making use of the server. So be it Facebook, be it LinkedIn, be it Google, any application in this world which is available to you 24/7, who is behind that? It is server. So whenever next time you write a code and you want to make it available for the entire world, up and running all the time, you know that you have to go and make use of servers. Am I clear? Does it make sense? Now, moving further, there's another terminology that we need to understand. So let's say that this is my application. Application is nothing but the code. And if this has to be available, it has to be brought under something called as a server. And server is nothing but it is something which will be running inside a computer, right? All these things that I'm talking about, all of this is being running inside a computer. Now, any person or an application, let's say that any person or any application who is trying to call this, application to fetch the result, right? So the person or the application who is trying to make call to this application, these are called as clients. Again, it is inspired from the real world itself. When you go and ask service from someone that mera mobile bana do, mera TV bana do, right? You are called as, you are our client, right? So here also this guy, this application is requesting for some data, then this person is called as a client. And what is asking for? This is called as a request. Now the server is the one who does the processing, who is available all the time to take the request. So it is up and running. It will do some processing here and after processing return the data which is called as the response. This typically is called as a request response cycle. So the application or the end user, say for example, if I am calling Facebook, www.facebook.com on my browser, I am the client. I am raising a request to the Facebook server. Facebook server returns the response because of which Facebook gets opened in my browser. This entire cycle, this entire process is called as the request response cycle. Am I clear, everyone? What is a server? What is an application? What is a client? Application is the code that you write. If you want that application to be available all the time for your customers across the world, you have to wrap it inside the server. What is a server? Server is a never stopping process, always up and running. Just say outside in a hotel, there is a guard who is always awake. Whenever a customer comes in, they kind of recognize that, appreciate them, welcome them and bring him inside the hotel. The server is one such loyal employee. It's always up and running. And the people or the application who is trying to make a call to this server, they are called as client. What they are asking for is called as request. When the server processes that and return the data, that's typically is called as response. And this entire cycle is called as the request response cycle. So now let's try to understand that how in Node.js world servers could be created. How can I open my application in the browser? How can I act like a client and run the existing application itself? So for doing this, let me go and create a new file and let me go and call this as server.js. In order to create server, Node.js has a native support. They have a module which is already available called as HTTP, which will help me go and create a normal HTTP server. So I go and say that const, let me go and call this as, where did they go? Yeah, this is server.js. Yeah. So here I go and say that const and I go and say that HTTP equals to require and I say HTTP. Perfect. Okay, I got the HTTP. Now what I need to do is, let me go and first of all create the server. I told you people already that server is nothing but a process which never stops. Always stop running process, never stopping process. So if it is a process, it will definitely bind to a port number, right? The different port numbers that you already know, right? Everything that any application, any process which runs in your machine, in your laptop is always binded to a port number, right? Maybe 8080, 8060, 7070, any other port number, right? So now I have to create a server which is a process. So I'll also have to provide one port number to which this process will be binded. So let's try to see that how that happens. So I go and say that const server equals to, and I go and say that http dot create server. What I do? I go and say that server is equal to http dot create server, right? And then inside this, let me take that space. Inside this, I can go and call a call function. So I can say the request response. So I've created a server, request and response. And then inside this, I go and define few routes. Define few routes. What that means is that, let's say that if request.url contains hello, in that case I should go and return response.end, and I go and say that hello world. Else if request.url equals to, and I go and say that welcome, then I'll say that response.end, and I go and say that welcome students. Perfect. If that is not the case, if none of these routes are there, then I go and say that response.write, and I will say that 404, and I say that response.end, and I can say that you are trying to hit a wrong URL. And then finally I go and say that server.listen, and I go and provide 3000, and I go and say that console.log server. But let's try to understand this code first of all, right? Let's try to first of all understand this code. Let me remove this so that I can bring the entire code at one place itself. Single screen. Now let me go ahead and talk about the code. In this case, if you see around, HTTP is a module. This will be used to create the server. Create server. How do I create server? So this module http.create server, this is a method. This method takes two arguments, request and the response. We already talked about what request and response is, right? Let's say that from the browser, this is a browser and this is an application. So in the browser, if I go and type, for example, I go and type 127.0.0.1 and the port number is 3000/hello. Right? So it will try to make a call to the application, and this will be called as a request. And when the application does the processing and returns back, this will be called as the response. So this request and response here, which you see, this request is nothing but this, and this response is nothing but this. And when I go and talk about the client, this guy is the client. Right? We'll see an example of, we'll try to see through the browser itself. So I go and create this. I say that if the URL, what is request.url? Request.url is this. So if the URL contains hello, then I'm saying that return hello world message. If the URL contains welcome, then I'm saying that bhaiya return welcome students. And in the case if none of these is present, neither hello nor welcome, then you go and return you are trying to hit a wrong URL. You are trying to hit a wrong URL. So this is the whole code base of server. This is the whole code base of the server. And I told you, server is a never stopping process. If it is a process running on a computer, it has to be bounded to a port. So this is a port number. And that's why here also the port number that I used was 3000. So this line basically what it will do, it will start the server. It will start the server. This thing will go and start the server. Am I clear, people, till this point? Using HTTP, we have created a server and we have started server which is listening on the port number 3000. Now let's try to run this and see if it works. And I'm hoping that everything in the code works fine. So let's try to run this. So let me go on to the terminal. Run terminal, and I go and say that node server. We go and run the node server.js. As soon as I run this, I can see here the server got started, means that server has started. If the server has started, it means that I should be able to reach this application as a client. Let's try to check through the browser. Now since this is running on my local machine, the IP address for the local machine is what? It is always 127.0.0.1 and it is running on the port number, it is running on the port number 3000. So let's try to do this. So I go and open 127.0.0.1 /3000. This is my port number on which I have to find, and when I go and say hello and click enter, if I zoom it, you see that I have got what? Hello students. What I said is working now. Can you guys relate it now? Now if I go and say instead of hello, if I go and say that welcome and hit enter again, I am getting welcome students. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome students. If I go and write something else, if I go and say something called as greet. Now here, since in my code, if you remember, I said that if it is hello, then you return hello world. If it is welcome, then you return welcome students. But apart from hello and welcome, if you don't have anything, in that case, you need to go and return you are trying to hit a wrong URL. So if I come here, it is printing you are trying to hit a wrong URL. So this is how a very simple server is up and running on my machine. So ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, we have seen a very quick demo of how the server could be created in Node.js. So by now, I'm pretty sure you guys are all very confident on what is the client, what is a circle, what is request, what is response, and what is the meaning of server is. If you are aware, if you are understood this, pause the video, put that into the comments, what you understood by server and how in the Node.js world, the servers could be built. So with this, we have come to the final segment of this whole video. So far, we talked a lot about what Node.js is, what are the things that we can do, a little internals of the Node.js, how the asynchronous processing happens. We talked about all these things. Now, $1 billion question is, if you look around in the world, there are so many tech stacks, right? If you look around yourself, when it comes about developing applications, right? In the market, there are multiple choices, right? People will say that you have Java to build application. You have Python to build application, right? You have C++ to build application. You have Golang to build application. And you also have Node.js. And not only these are just few of the many. There are so many options that is there when you have to go and build scalable applications. Now, as a customer, when I have to use it, as a developer, when I have to use it, I am always confused. That, sir, what should I use among all these things? When should I use Node.js or when should I not use one of the Node.js? Now, when a developer normally starts, one of the common mistakes that I see people doing in the industry, and I'm telling you with my experience of working for so many years, normally, let's say that if you're given a project, an average developer, right, if he or she has to build a project, they will try to see that what language that I know. So for example, let's say that if I know Java, then no matter what this project is, I always try to build in the Java itself. Or if I know, let's say C++, I will always try to craft my code in C++ only. But that's not the right approach. The right approach is, first of all, you try to understand what is the use case of this project. What kind of nature of the project is, and then based on kind of application that you are trying to build, you need to decide that whether Java is the best fit for it, or be it C++ or Python or Node.js. But in order to answer that, everything that you learn, whether you're learning Java, you're learning JavaScript, you're learning Python, You should understand that what is the context in which that language, that tech fits the most. And for that, a very important question that comes to the hand now is that where should I go ahead and make use of Node.js? Where Node.js should be used? So first of all, talk about the scenarios which is a fit for when. When should I use Node.js? We talked about that Node.js is a runtime. Right? When I go and talk about the Node.js, a runtime for JavaScript. And it is a single-threaded programming language. It's a single-threaded. The beauty about the Node.js is it helps you get the asynchronous processing happen. Since this is a case, any kind of application where there is a lot of I/O operation, any kind of application where the I/O application happens a lot, I mean input, output, read and write. You're waiting for something while you're reading, right? Callbacks. In all those kind of applications, Node.js will scale up very well. So what that means? What kind of application will have most of the I/Os, right? So typically the real-time applications, for example, chatting application, let's say that you go and want to build. Multiple messages are coming and going, someone is reading, someone is writing, a lot of, so building chat applications, streaming applications, real-time applications. So any type of application where there's a lot of concurrency, Node.js application really shines. I'll give you an example. PayPal initially was using C++ as their core stack. And that's when they realized that they have to spend a lot of money in running their infrastructure. And that's when they decided to move to Node.js, and they were able to cut the cost of running their infrastructure by many, many times. And how was that possible? Because they made use of Node.js. It's very light. It makes use of single thread. So it doesn't involve, intensive computer memory, right? It's very simple, the language, single thread, and it makes a very light memory requirement. So it reduced down the infrastructure cost of the PayPal by a great margin. So where do I make use of? So any kind of application where you try to do a lot of I/O operations, lot of concurrency, application like chat application, streaming application, real-time applications, when you're trying to build microservices, smaller applications talking to each other very frequently, in all these kind of situations, Node.js is the right choice. Now, once we have talked about these are the points where you should make use of Node.js. Now, equally important is that we also understand that when I should not use. As I said, Node.js, that's great. But it's not that in every kind of application you'll just go and put the Node.js itself. So as a good software engineer, you have to be aware that what are the situations where we cannot use Node.js, right? So let's say to talk about the challenges of situations where we can't use, don't use. Since I know that Node.js JavaScript is single threaded, it means that there is only one worker. So if my application is computation heavy, if I'm trying to build a compute intensive application, for example, let's say that I have to sort a 1 billion row of numbers. That is a compute intensive operation. So if my operation is compute intensive, sir, you know that I only have one thread here, only one worker, and if it's keep on doing, I cannot do anything else. So in this case, my Node.js application cannot scale well. So if you have a compute intensive application, avoid it. Heavy operations, heavy processing, almost same as this point itself. Also, let's say that all your tasks are highly synchronous. The nature of your project is such that if you try to break them into the tasks, each task has to be sequential, it has to be synchronous, it has to be one after the another. If that is the case, you are not going to reap out the benefit of the Node.js. So in all these kind of situations, if your application falls in one of these category people, we should not use Node.js. We should try to use another programming languages which have the support for multiple threads, right? So let's say that if I need some application where I need threading, right? If I use threading, multiple threads I need, right? Parallel threads. In all such situations, sir, I might not be able to scale up. I might not be able to do justice to the application. And in those situations, I should not make use of Node.js application. So with this, we have come to the end of this Node.js deep dive. I hope it was helpful. If you have been able to focus till this now, part 1 and part 2, I think you have done commendable job. Please pat your back. If you like the content, please put that into the comments, share over the LinkedIn, tag me that how this content help you. Your little motivation, your little support on the social networking websites motivates me enough to bring more videos like this. I have planned a lot of things for you people to bring free of cost on YouTube, but I'll definitely expect a little love and support from you on the social media. Thank you and keep learning.